At the tailgate of 2019, Shonen Jump would release Atsushi Nakamura's second serialization, Agravity Boys. The manga would have a pretty decent run for the next title, but eventually end with 50 chapters just a bit over a year after it began in the start of 2021. And I know that I normally don't tend to focus on the previous series of the others in these videos, but Agravity Boys was something very special to me. Maybe because it was about a group of really tight friends in an isolated world, running exactly at the time where all of us became isolated from our own friends. The Gravity Boys chapters gave me a sense of truly being there with them, of being part of the team, the friend group. It was one of the things that kept me going amidst the COVID era, and I truly love it for it. It became my favorite title of the entirety of the magazine's history, and I finally remember not only my time reading the manga, but also the very small but quite faithful fan base. Shout out to Mayu. If you want to know more about the Gravity Boys, I most definitely recommend the X-File on it by my good friend Trentin, on which I also make a cameo. But 5 years after the end of the series, Nakamura returns finally with a new manga, Roku's House of Oddities. To say that I've been excited about this manga is to put it lightly. I know, Sorachi, the godmother of Gintama, is also returning in this batch, but I'm still more excited for this one, because this one means a lot to me, and in a lot of ways, this has actually been the most excited I've ever been for a brand new series in Weekly Shonen Jump. Is that stupid? Yeah, but that's life. With that hype, however, let's actually jump into Roku's House of Oddities and see if it was as good as I hoped it to be. This is a story of, you guessed it, Roku, or actually Seiroku, a member of the science club who decides to not do science at all, but instead dabble in the occult, with the idea being that if it proves that the supernatural doesn't exist, that's science, I guess. It decides to do the 5 rituals that are supposedly needed to be done in order to lift the seals that lock the 5 curses that lie within the city, except that he's not really that into this. Not only cramming the 5 rituals that should be done across 5 nights into a single one, but doing them very, very half-assed. Like, for example, using 100 10-yen candies instead of 100 roses, using TikTok dances instead of the supposedly ritual dance of madness and despair, singing a pop song instead of a lament of hopeful tragedy. To be fair, he doesn't really believe in any of this anyways, so in his eyes, it's all the same. Except it's apparently not just in his eyes, as later that night the 5 curses make themselves appear in Roku's bedroom. As they explain through the many back and forth jokes, the ritual is supposed to kill Roku, but because he did all 5 of them in one single night, they all kind of block each other, so they can't kill him. But because he's the one who broke the seals, they're also unable to move too far from him, so he just got 5 new roommates, including a really big ass dog. Obviously, he does not really want this, so they tell him the way to remove the curses. Turns out that the curses were formed because of giant accumulations of negative human emotion. Thankfully, because of the incredibly incorrect rituals that Roku made, they're not revived in their full form, meaning that not all of the malice of the curses inhabit in their bodies, which means that they're nice. They're kinda nice. Nonetheless, the way to lift the curses involves Roku discovering the history behind each individual curse and the reasons why they were formed, and it's with this goal that the chapter ends. It's mostly a lore dump, while at the same time trying to show a bit of the personality of the 6 characters that probably will make the bulk of the cast, and to be fair, I think the chapter did a really good job at being just that. I think we got a solid idea of who each individual character is, from the clean freak guy, the otaku girl, the strange but kinda nice masked man, the creepy doll girl, and of course, dog. Which, these 2 last ones don't really get much time to shine, as the humor is mostly focused on the back and forth of dialogue. None of these don't talk, but one of them is a dog, and the other one is meant to be the silent and quiet mysterious type, so I think it's fine. I am pretty confident in Nakamura's ability to write a good cast of characters, because Gravity Boys was all about the characters. It was very little about the actual story of it, which, while we're at it, I think that's probably the main difference between these two series, in my opinion, when it comes to their chances of survival. Gravity Boys lasted 50 chapters, sure, and that's a feat onto itself when it comes to Axe titles, but however, we need to be aware of the context. That manga was released at what I think is the best time possible. During 2020, there were like 7 long-running series that ended, plus only one title of 2019 really survived, being Mission Izakura Family. The magazine had a lot of wiggle room for a series that was just doing alright to survive most of the axes. Nowadays, that is not the case. The magazine is far fuller, and contrary to when Gravity Boys first started, there's already a solid gag manga already at the top. That said, I do believe Roku has more mainstream appeal than Gravity Boys. Like, Agravity Boys had no real story or plot besides the original backstory given to them. You are legitimately just kind of seeing those boys being boys meme that were kind of popular a while ago, just happening over and over and over again. And it's great. I especially love how much of this manga refuses to be taken seriously, even when it was facing its doom. I mean, the final arc is a work of art by itself, being the greatest arc of all time, in my opinion. Like, everyone that has read Gravity Boys remembers the Penis World arc. How can you not? It's called the Penis World arc. Whenever there was a threat of the series going into a series direction or a more plot-focused story, the author just slapped us in the face. And you can kind of see a hint of this in the first chapter, towards the end, when Roku's series is like talking about how he's going to have to find the emotional and dark backstories of all these characters just to probably go, how am I gonna do that with the dog? However, Roku's House of Oddities already has given us not only the plot, but also a goal that makes the series much more digestible and probably like interesting to your average reader, which I do appreciate. If you're going to go on this path, you have to accept that you're going to actually have to deliver on serious and potentially even emotional moments in your series for this to actually work. And I hope he actually does. Ultimately, I loved Gravity Boys so much that I need this manga to survive. I need Atsushi Nakamura to have a successful run to his name. I hope this can be that, but only time will tell. If you want to see my first thoughts on all the other Shonen Jump series, you have a playlist on your left that you can check out. And if you want to keep knowing as more series come out, then consider subscribing. And if you are still here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.